Thank Hashem that we're able to learn every day. In this chus of learning, we should have the Beis Hamikdash immediately. Today, the Mishnah Daf Chaf Gimel. How long have you been waiting for this? It says like this: Ha'isha shenadra b'nazir, a woman that takes a vow. This is 23a, the Mishnah. 2 lines from the top. A woman takes a vow that she's going to become a nazir. And she's still drinking wine. She's ignoring the vow that she took, and she's going to the cemetery. She's becoming impure to corpse. So she's going to get lashes. Let's say the husband annulled her vow. The husband said, I don't want it to be a nazir. So the husband has the right to annul her vow within the first day. He's able to do that. Now, she doesn't know that the husband annulled the vow. So she's being rebellious. She's drinking wine, even though she took the vow, and she's going to the cemetery. She doesn't know that she's really innocent. Because the vow was annulled. She thinks she's doing a sin. So she doesn't get the lashes because she's actually not doing the sin. Rabbi Yehuda says, she doesn't get the lashes, but she still gets a different type of lashes, which is called makas mardas. Mardas either means rebellious or it means ridoy, which means to control.
Why wasn't this used as the Meikara?
You mean like the beginning, like an earlier Mishnah than this?
No. Why wasn't this used as proof that it annuls it Meikara?
Oh, like the yesterday's Gemaras.
It clearly shows that it's Meikara.
No, you have a way of saying that it doesn't. What you would say is like this: you can always say that the case was that the husband annulled it, and then she goes and drinks wine, and not beforehand. In other words, when was she drinking wine? After the husband canceled it. I could have explained it like that. And yeah, I have a way out. Basically, I have a way of saying that it doesn't prove that. She was never informed, right? Yeah, that's a good idea. Asking about the communication was not good. Yeah. Okay. They didn't have text. When he's going to get around, he comes home late from work. Right. Okay. Tanar Rabbanan was taught in a brisa. Isha hafiram. The husband annuls it. Hashem yisachla, and Hashem forgives. Question is, if the husband annulled it, why does Hashem have to forgive? She didn't do anything wrong. It goes like this. It says, we're actually talking about where the husband annulled the vow, but she didn't know that the husband annulled the vow. And she still needs she needs an atonement because she violated the vow that wasn't even there. So what we're learning now is that there's 2 parts to sin. There's the actual sin, which she did not do, and there's the intention to sin, which she did do. So the intention seems to be as significant, something significant that does require atonement. I don't know which one is more, the intention of the sin. Probably the sin is more, but because you see she doesn't get malchus. But the intention of sinning is also something. Sorry? Right, because then you have both. Okay, But the question is, which one is this actual sin or the intention to sin? So, I mean, the safe assumption is that the sin is worse than the intention. No, the sin can happen without the intention, and the intention can happen without the sin, right? So, when Rabbi Akiva would come to this verse, he would cry. We talk about someone that he intended to eat pig, and instead he ate lamb. He was trying to sin. With his bad luck, with his good luck, he ended up that it wasn't a sin. It was lamb. And such a person is tan kaparo slicha. Why? Because he intended to sin, even though he didn't actually sin. If someone intends to sin and he actually does sin, you can imagine what atonement he needs. Even if he didn't actually sin, he needs an atonement. So for sure, if he did the sin as well. Was that the thing with this guy? He went to a school where they teach him to be a heretic, not to believe in God. You know, in Germany they had this. Anyway, he had some doubts. He thought maybe there is a God. He goes to the professor. The professor says he should drink his Nagelwasser, get rid of his doubts. So he drank his Nagelwasser and he got rid of his doubts. Then he realized the Nagelwasser works. He started to believe again. Okay, so something similar. He says, this is talking about a korban asham. He says he doesn't know that he sinned, so he has to carry his guilt. And that we're talking about, well, we're going to have machlekes here, what the actual case is. But basically, if someone possibly committed a sin, for example, he possibly ate chaylev. So until he finds out for sure, he brings one atonement, the korban asham, the guilt offering. And when he finds out for sure that he sinned, then he has to bring the korban chatos, which that's the regular offering, the sin offering. So this is called the asham tali. It's an asham that he brings when he's not sure. So it says like this. If someone was intending to eat lamb, but instead he ate pig. For example, there was one piece of meat. There's two types of fat. One is a kosher fat and one's a non-kosher fat. There's no difference between them except for the location on the body. You can't test it in a lab. Maybe you can in a lab, but from sight, you see two pieces of fat. You can't tell which one is which. The only person that knows which one is which is the one that removed it. So he has it on the table, and he ate it. And Amar Krav and Asavaina, the pasuk says that he has to bring the guilt offering, which is the Asham Talik, because could be he committed the sin. So if that's the case, Mishin Iskavan Lalis Biyadi Basachazir Vala Biyadi Basachazir Alachas come for sure. If someone intended to sin and he actually did sin, for sure he needs an atonement. Okay. So we have another example of this Kal V'Chaimer. If someone wasn't sure that he sinned, he has to bring an atonement for sure, yeah. Or if someone intended to sin but didn't actually sin, has to bring in for sure. Someone that actually sinned has to bring an atonement. We have one more case over here. Isi ben Yehuda, Isi ben Yehuda, he argues with Rabbi Akiva. Or he argues with I think it's Rabbi Akiva, the first opinion there. First opinion said that if there's one piece of meat or one piece of fat that he doesn't know if it's the kosher fat, which is called shuman, or if it's the forbidden fat, which is called chaylev, doesn't know which one it is, and he ate it. So he has to bring an atonement, a guilt offering, right? So Isi ben Yehuda says no. It's actually only when there's two pieces of meat on the table and he took the wrong one. If someone intended to eat the kosher one, but he ended up with the pig. So for example, going shtei chatichas. There's two pieces of meat, two slices. Achas shel chelav, achas shel shuman. One of them was kosher. One of them was non-kosher. The shuman is the kosher one. It says when he carries his guilt when he eats one of them. For sure, if he ends up eating, if he intends to eat the wrong one and he actually eats the wrong one, the prohibited one, for sure he needs an atonement. And this it says, or on this it said that those who suffer should suffer. I mean, someone that intends to do the wrong thing should I guess have his punishment. Taisva says, what's this expression? It's a strange expression. Dava is like to it's libi dava, my heart moans or something.
It's the same root as the word nadava?
No,
because that's a base.
Yeah. I think eres davai. Eres is a pasuk like that. Eres davai, like a sick bed or something. It means like to moan or to suffer. Well, Taisva says that there's a Rosh Tevis here. The Rosh Tevis is Yada v'Ashem v'Nasa is Dava, is Dava. So there, it's based on this pasuk that's talking about the offering that someone brings when he's not sure if he did the sin. So we use that pasuk. Okay.
So he needs to bring this carbon because he needs forgiveness because he intended
to
do an avera.
No.
Even though he didn't.
No.
Is that what?
No, because he may have done the avera even without intention. See, what happened over here is, I have the case by the woman. She intended to do avera, but didn't do the avera. So we say, oh, kal v'chaimer, someone that intended to do the avera. Then we have two more cases of someone that did not intend to do the avera, but possibly did the avera. So we say, oh, for sure, someone that intended and did the avera. So it's the opposite. It's the opposite story. And now the Gemara is going to say, why do we need both of these stories? It's the same thing, right? Why do we need, well, it's really three stories. We have the woman that that intended to sin, but didn't actually sin. She needs atonement. Then we have the two men that are eating the meat that are not intending to sin, but they're ending up sinning. One of them, it was only one piece of meat and he thought it was the kosher one. He thought can't say it was the kosher one. He thought that this piece of meat was kosher. And the other one was two pieces of meat. And he thought he took the one on the right. He took the one on the left. His wife said, when you come home, I left your dinner on the table, but one is for you and one is for the cleaning lady. It's which one's for me? It says the one on the right. The right from which side? They ate the wrong one, right? From the kitchen or from the front door. So.
But this situation doesn't just apply to a Nazir. It could be any netter that someone makes.
Yeah.
Right? So I was wondering why it's not in Sechet Dor. Why it's Nazir. Apply it to both forms.
But here it says that it is quoted in the Darim. Hey Gimel. Let me take a look at that. It only quotes part of it. It doesn't quote the whole thing.
How'd you find that?
On the side of my Gemara, it says, it's called Meseres Shas. And it says over here, like where else I'll find this Gemara. Then it says Taisus is on the Chachamid Beis. Isn't that interesting? Taisus is out of order. Yeah. Why was Rabbi Akiva crying? He was saying that look at how serious it is. Someone that didn't even do a sin needs an atonement. How responsible what a high standard we're being held to. Yeah, in that book, I don't know if we mentioned, there's a book about Rabbi Akiva. It's not a from author, I think. I don't know. Those Jewish lives, the Jewish life books. They write biographies. Anyway, one of them is called Akiva, and in there, it's a woman that wrote it, but she's describing that when Rabbi Akiva was saying, "I don't know if the Torah can enter my heart," and then he goes and sees the water dripping on the rock, and he says, "If the water can enter my," she emphasizes that it's the heart, not the head. A lot of times in Tanakh, it talks about wisdom from the heart, but she wants to say, at least, that Rabbi Akiva wasn't concerned about his understanding; he was concerned about his character. Would he be able to refine his character? Right. Right, very good. Okay, now the Gemara says that why do you need all of these cases? Well, tzrichen, it's necessary. If would have the case by the woman that's where she intended to sin, but she didn't actually sin. She needs atonement because she intended to sin. But the fellow that thought he was eating kosher, it turned out it wasn't kosher. Maybe he doesn't need an atonement because he didn't have any intention to sin. So therefore it tells us that he does need atonement. And if we would only say that one where he actually sinned, but he didn't intend to sin, the chisur, because there he actually sinned. The hetera, but by the woman where she didn't actually sin, maybe she doesn't need an atonement. So I can take this both ways. So therefore, it's necessary to say both of those first two cases. And if it said the first two cases, I could have thought that over there, just an atonement would be enough, because we didn't know that anything was prohibited. First of all, the woman, it actually wasn't prohibited because her vow was annulled, and the person that ate the piece of meat, there was no meat there that wasn't kosher. He thought that it was kosher. It turns out that maybe it wasn't, but it wasn't like there were two pieces and he took one of them and he should have been more careful. He didn't have any clue that this should be not kosher. But if there's two pieces of meat and one of them is actually not kosher, over there we have an established prohibition on the table, and he just goes and he takes one. Maybe maybe an atonement wouldn't be enough because he actually there was something there he should have examined. You can just say, well, I don't know if it's kosher. It probably is, right? Right. Only eat first, ask later. So we'd say maybe atonement doesn't help. The Kamash Malan, the Leishna comes to tell us that atonement does help. Okay.
In both cases, he would have to bring, he or she would have to bring a carbon contest.
When he finds out for sure, the carbon asham talui is what you bring when you don't know. The chatas is what you bring when you do know. Chatas is only for sure.
In both cases, they're
in both cases you'd have to bring it, right? No, only the one. If it's intentional, only the sin offering. If it's not intentional, if he knows, if he commits a sin unintentionally, but he knows that he did it, then he brings the sin offering. If it's unintentional and he doesn't know that he did it, it's a question if he actually committed the sin. Then he brings the guilt offering, which is called the Asham Tali. Okay. Amar Rabba Bar Bachana Amar Rabbi Yechanan. Rabba Bar Bachana says in the name of his teacher, Rabbi Yechanan, says like this, my diksiv, what's the meaning of the verse? Is in Hosea. Ki yesharim darchei Hashem, tzadikim yalcha ba, paishim yikashlu bam. The ways of God are straight, are just. The tzaddikim walk on this path, and the wicked, those that sin, will stumble on it. So it sounds like there's one path. Some people are successful and some people stumble. How does that work? What is it? Oy and Asher. Right. It says Mashal Shnei Bnei Adam. There's an example, two people. Shetzalu B'Sfeim, that they're roasting their carbon Pesach. Echad Ashel L'Shom Mitzvah, V'echad Achlu L'Shom Achila Gasa. Achlai. One of them ate it for the sake of the mitzvah, and one ate it. It's a Achila Gasa means that he couldn't even eat it because he was so stuffed that he was just like hurting himself when he ate it. So you see, both of them did the same act. Both of them ate Korban Pesach, but one of them gets the mitzvah, and one of them it doesn't count because he's just stuffing himself more than he can even eat. It's just like force feeding himself. Well, it says like this: Zeshach l'shem mitzvah. One that ate it for the sake of the mitzvah, tzadikim yalchabam. That's the tzaddik. He walks in it, and that's good. Zeshach l'shem achila gasad. One that ate it to stuff himself. Paishim yikashlu bam. The sinners stumble over it. Okay. Very good. Right. Sorry. The Musaf. Amalei Reish Lakish. Reish Lakish says to Rabbi Yechanan, or maybe to Rabbi Bar Bechana, hi, Rasha Karislay. You calling this person that overate, calling him wicked? Although, does Al Shabbat quote this in Tanya in the first chapter? I don't remember that. In the first chapter, he quotes like, if someone does even the most minor sin, he's considered wicked. Says you're calling him over here. No, I don't remember that from the first chapter. He says, okay, he didn't do the best mitzvah, but need to like covered mitzvah, he didn't do the best, but Pesach me a covered, but he did a carbon Pesach. Okay, now there's a huge problem with this statement, because if someone eats an achila gasa, he eats when he's not able to eat because he's so stuffed that you have to force it in his mouth. So then it's not even considered that he did the mitzvah. Here it sounds like he did the mitzvah, but it's not perfect. And the truth is that we have other sources that he didn't even do the mitzvah. So two interpretations here. One, both are quoted in the Rush. Taisus quotes one of them. Rush quotes both of them. One interpretation is, look, you have to look at the whole story. It's Pesach. All the food was being cooked, and it was delicious. And the matzah balls. Okay. Actually, in those days, in the time of the Beis Hamikdash, of course, they had matzah balls. It's only today when our matzah is baked quickly and like the way that we do it. So then we made the problem. We ourselves created the problem where you can't have the rough. But back then, when they would make it the soft dough and it was mixed and all of that, they didn't have any shiloh. It's a modern shiloh. The Hillel sandwich was a wrap. Of course, the matzah wasn't crispy. It was a wrap. It was a lafa. They could wrap the meat, and it was anyway. He ate everything that his mother, his wife, his grandmother prepared. It comes to the Korban Pesach, he didn't have any room left. Now he has to eat the Korban. So you call him a wicked person? What do you want him to do now? he filled up on the gefilte fish. Okay, so so you can't call him wicked. Well, it doesn't fit with the words Pesach Miyakavad. But however, Rabbi Natam says that there's two types of achila gasa. One is where he actually can't eat, and if he eats more, he's going to throw up. But he forces himself to eat, and that's achila gasa, where the Gemara says in other places that doesn't work. Here, it's just he's just stuffed, but he could still he forces it. It's fine. It's not like he's hurting himself. He said that could be that's the mitzvah. Oh yeah. Oh, very interesting. Very interesting.
Always afikomen.
Well, that's interesting. Afikomen, it says you're supposed to eat when you're full, but it doesn't mean when you're full. It means that you're supposed to get filled with the afikomen. Like that's the part that fills you up. It's like the main course at a meal. They give you all this other stuff before then they bring you the main course. You're supposed to be full, and that's supposed to fill you. That's supposed to fill you. So the afikomen, we call it dessert. It doesn't mean dessert. Dessert is when you're already full, and it's just sweet. There's always room for sweets. But the afikomen was meant that after you have everything else, because you don't just eat meat. You have all the first courses, and then the main course would be the meat. At the end, that's what fills you up. That's the afikomen. I think that's what it shot. Okay. Ella, so Rish Lakish doesn't like this example. He says, he gives another example. There's two people in the house. 3 people in the house. There's a man, his wife, and his sister. Well, actually, this is 2 houses, or maybe it's 4 people in the house. One of them, it's his wife. One of them, it's a sister. This one ended up with his wife. This one ended up with his sister. Can't be, it's 4 people. Right? It can't be 4. Can't be 4 people. Because the guy, no, because the guy that was supposed to be with his wife and the other guy was with the wife, they can't both have the same wife.
This is the second man on the other hand.
No, so 1 second. So that's 2 different houses. I wanted to mix it all together, but it doesn't. Well, it can't be 4 people in the same house because both of them can't have the same wife, right? So it's 2 different houses, and each one there's 3 people in each of those houses. One of them has a wife and his sister, and one of them has a wife and a sister. This one ends up living with his wife, and this one ends up living with his sister. They didn't have electric lighting, so Zeshin is this one that has his wife that ends up with his wife tzadikim yelchabam. The righteous go on that path. Possessions. The wicked stumble. Well, why is he called? It sounds like he was wicked beforehand. It sounds like that maybe he did something wrong before that caused him to end up being. Why is he called wicked? Stumbling. He's stumbling.
But he wouldn't have stumbled if he wasn't.
That's what it sounds like. Sounds like the tzaddikim they're always going to get, it's always going to work out correctly. And the wicked, everything is going to have bad luck. Me dummy, the Gemara says, is this comparable? We're talking about that there's one path that both of them go on. This one walks and this one stumbles. Here you're telling me that it's 2 different. Over here, this one was with his wife, this is with his sister. Those are 2 different paths. That's not one path. Ella, rather, it's a very interesting Gemara over here. It says, the example would be Light and his 2 daughters. Now, what happened was the city of Sodom was overturned, and Light's daughters think that there's no other man left in the world because they don't know that the world was larger than that. They think this is everything. And they think that if society is going to continue, it's going to still be a civilization, it's going to have to come from them. So they get the father drunk and they live with the father, become pregnant, they have children. Well, apparently, Light understood that wasn't the end of the earth. And that there were people, if you just have to go over the next hill and you'll see that there's a whole city over there. it looks like the righteous are just getting lucky because of all their prior decisions. So they end up that things work out for them. That's what it sounds like. And the wicked, because they made so many bad decisions before, they end up that even when maybe they're trying to do it, it ends up getting messed up. That's what it sounds like. So, the daughters intended for the mitzvah. They thought that this was the end of the world, and this is the way. Look, how did the world start? Of Adam and Chava, fine, but after that, someone had to marry the sister, right? Because it's only two parents. So then they had. So were they allowed to? Yeah, because that was the only way that they could continue. So the Light's daughters were Niskavan L'Shem Mitzvah. Tzadikim Yelchabam. They're tzadikim. They went on the path. But he intended for pleasure. So we'll discuss in a second like that. The wicked stumble. Maybe he also intended for the mitzvah. How do you know? It was being so critical of him. We don't even know what's going on over there. We're criticizing him that he's stumbling. He's wicked. Rabbi Yochanan. Okay. It says Kala pasuk al Hashem Aveira Nemar. All of this pasuk is the association is with sin. Why? So what happens over here is that Light doesn't intend for sin at all, but he becomes this victim of circumstance because of his prior decisions that he ends up falling into sin because of things that he did before. Well, take a look what happened. Avram tells him, where would you like to go? You have to go away from me. Where would you like to go? You can go this way, you can go down. I'll go the other way, right? So Light lifts up his eyes and he sees the plain is full of water and he wants to go there. Vayisa Light lifted up his eyes. Oh, the Vayisa Light, you hear the expression Vayisi lifted up his eyes? That reminds me of another pasuk. Batisha Eses Adonai V'Seina, the wife of the master lifted up her eyes and she sees Yosef. That was when the wife of Potiphar wants to live with Yosef.
What's the words lifted up?
Lifted up. That associating is with Light. What was Light seeing? What was he seeing over there? Fruit and Spice Park? No, he was seeing. He saw Las Vegas.
Yeah, but Abraham,
Las Vegas.
Literally.
but Abraham Avinu lifted up his eyes also on the way to Yekeda.
Oh, that's a good question.
So maybe that was
Maybe that's part of this. That when a wicked person lifts up his eyes, we know from what happens later of what he meant. They see. What does it mean? That's Einav, his eyes. We have another pasuk, his eyes. Okay, Yeshara Beinai. This is Shimshon talking about the Philistine girl that he liked, because she's good in his eyes. And we know what this is about. Vayar, and he saw the plain. Oh, Vayar, he saw. Well, Vayar is Shechem ben Chamar. This is when Shechem also he saw Dinah, and he raped her. Eskol Kikar Yarden, the whole plain of the Jordan. He saw that whole plain, and so we say, oh, the plain Kikar. Now in Hebrew, Kikar also means a loaf. We translate it as a plain, but it also could be translated as a loaf. So in the Hebrew, it gets exchanged for that person will give his last loaf of bread to live with the harlot. So, Kikar. Do you see what's going on over here? This is what Light saw. He looks over. Well, the Gemara has a very critical view of Light over here. Yeah. That what his intention was when he saw that area. He says, "Let me go move over there." We know what he really wanted. In the end, we find that everything that happens to him,
He's putting himself in
everything that happens to him comes out was unintentional, but his intention originally wasn't good. So he ends up getting his intention like in some like strange way. Remember when they come to his house and they say, "Give us your guest," and instead he gives his daughters. He's ready to give it and then he ends up living with his daughters. But it's all based on his first. The Gemara is attributing to those original decision to leave Avram, all of that and where he went. Now all of that falls out with the wicked stumble. That's how it's being put over here. Right, exactly. Kikula mashkinos, those initial decisions. because it was all full of irrigation. Where do you see this? Now we quote Hosea, El Chachrei Ma'avai, Ma'avai Noisni Lachmi, Memri, Tzamri, Pishti, Shamni, Vishikoye, when the woman says, I'm not going to stay with my husband. Let me go after those people, other people that love me. They give me my bread and water and wool and flax and oil and my drinks. Right? This is quoted in Lamentation? No, this is in Hosea. This is Hosea. We are. Oh. So okay. So we see over here the drink, and that's the irrigation, which is the adulterers, right? Okay. Now the Gemara says, why are you being so critical of light? For Hamenas honest, but he was drunk. He wasn't responsible. How was he supposed to know what was going on? He was drunk. Tana Mishim Rabbi Yossi Barav Chayni, Barav Chayni. Rabbi Yossi says the name of Rav Chayni. Lama Nakad al Vav Uvekuma. Why is there a dot on the top of the word Uvekuma? It says that he didn't know about when she laid down with him and when she got up. He didn't know. Light didn't know. The pasuk says Light didn't know. But why is there a dot on top of the vav? Whenever there's a dot on top of a letter in the Torah, you see the Torah doesn't have vowels, so there's no dots.
Oh, in the Torah there's a dot.
In the Torah, actually, there is a dot. You know,
Just in that instance.
just in that instance. And there's a few others that we have it. Whenever it does that, it means to remove it, to remove that letter and remove that word. So what we're saying is, al vav ubekuma shel bechira. When she got up, he didn't know when the older daughter was first, right? Was the first night. Laimar is coming to teach me, Shebeshach v'layada, he didn't know when they had relations because he was drunk. Layada, aval bekuma yada, but when he got up, he understood that she had relations with him when he got up. He knew what had happened that night. He knew in the morning, while he was drunk, he didn't know. In the morning, he realized what happened. So, my havalela mevad, but what do you want from him? Madahava, whatever happened, happened. Yeah. Says Nafkamina de la Panya the following night he shouldn't have drank wine. He set himself up again.
Oh wow.
What do you mean? He doesn't have to drink.
He drank
the wine was there in the cave from Hashem.
Right, yeah.
Okay. That's like the guy sees the safe to the bank is open. Okay. Darash Rava. Rava taught the following pasuk. What's the meaning of the pasuk? Nifsha mikiryas oyis. A brother that's offended. There's so many interpretations of this pasuk. Either a brother that's offended is better than a city that's a strong fortified city, or it's worse that a brother that's is worse than a fortified city, or okay, whatever the interpretation is. Umedinim kivriyach armain, and contentions are like the bars of a castle. Like fighting is like getting locked out. Ach nefshami kiryasai, what does it mean, a brother that's offended from a city that's fortified? Zel light shapirish me Avram, that's light that ends up separating from Avram. Medanim kivriyach armain, medinim kivriyach armain, and the contentions are like the bars of a palace or a castle. Shehitel medinim kivriyach armain, that he puts up contentions like the bars of a castle. Like what's happened over here? It says layavi amayni mayavi b'kal Hashem. Because his descendants weren't able to come into the congregation of Hashem. Light's descendants, his two daughters, had children. One was Mayav and one was Amain. Those descendants are not allowed to marry into the congregation. We don't accept them in marriage. Well, turns out that this example, I forget where I saw this. I saw it in one of the commentaries. Rus,
women.
The women, yes, but not the men. That's why the example over here, I saw it in the Ben Yada, that the women. Why do we say it's like a bar, a beam that locks the castle? Because the beam locks from the inside. which means that it's not really locked from both sides. It's only locked from one side. Men that stay outside are locked. The women that stay inside are unlocked. That means that they're able to marry, and that's the nice pshat. Darash Rava taught V'yitema Rabbi Yitzchak, and some say it was Rabbi Yitzchak that taught this. Ma'ida ksiv l'savi yavakish nifrad. The nifrad, really, the one that separates himself, really was desiring, was lusting, was desiring to lust, was yavakish l'taiva for his desires. B'chol tishi yiskala, and all is tishia means anything that's competent, anything that's successful. Yiskala, he'll be despised, disdained. L'tavi yavakish nifrad. What does it mean that the nifrad wants his desires a light? Light, when he separated, he was looking at you for his desires. He didn't know exactly what's going to happen over there, but the fact that he went to that place was a bad decision. And in all competent places, he'll be disdained. That his shame is revealed in the synagogues and in the places of study. The Tanan, because we're studying the Mishnah, they're never allowed to get married into the congregation. Okay, Amar Ula. Ula taught Tamar Zinsa Zimri Zina. Tamar, she sinned. She had adultery with her father-in-law. And Zimri was the prince of Shimon, right? He commits adultery with the princess of Maya, right? Cosby. Right.
I don't understand this. It says Tamar engaged in promiscuity.
Right. What happened was, Tamar Zinsa, what happened was, Yehuda had 3 sons, and his daughter-in-law, Tamar,
right.
He didn't give the youngest son to Tamar. So in those days, Yibam was performed by any member of the family, including the father-in-law. So she dresses up like a harlot, and she's on the road. And Yehuda, so her intention was good. In Yatzim Mena Malachim and Nevi'im, what comes out of her? Kings, David HaMelech and Nevi'im, and also prophets. How do you see prophets? So Tosfos says, based on the Gemara Megillah, that because Yeshaya is also a descendant of Tamar. Zimri Zina, Nafal of Kamar Ravis Yisrael, and Zimri sins, and look at how many people died, 24,000 people. Rav Nachman Yitzchak says that it's better to do a sin for the right intention than to do a mitzvah for the wrong intention. Umar says, really? You could do mitzvahs for the wrong intention, just get into the habit, and then you'll come to doing it for the right intention. It's like a mitzvah that's shalei lishma. An aveira lishma, if someone sins with the right intention, that's as good as a mitzvah that's with the wrong intention. In other words, it becomes equal, like we were mentioning before. What's more important, the intention or the act? Turns out over here, it looks like it's equal. The ksiv, we do this. In the song of Devaira, it says that the Yael, what happened was the Devaira and what was his name? Barak were fighting the battle against Sisera, and Sisera is running away, and Yael goes out of her tent and invites him in, and she ends up putting the peg through his temple. Right. Well, what actually happened is, here the story goes, that she actually invited him to have relations with her. So man nashim shaba'ayel, and she's more blessed than the women of the tent. Who are the women of the tent? Sarif Garachav Alaya. Then the matriarchs. Money. It should be downstairs in the main shelf. You can go down, take the elevator or the stairs. Sister had 7 relations with Yael at that time, and then after that he fell asleep. How do we know that it was 7 times? They have a whole bunch of expressions over there. If you count them out, there'll be 7 of them. What are you saying that y'all everything she did was it was for the sake of heaven, but she enjoyed it. Rabbi Yechanan, Kaltivasan Shal Hashem ain't all right. So she didn't enjoy it at all. Anything that they enjoy, the tzaddikim don't enjoy. Because it says by light, don't talk to Yaakov. Hashem tells Lavan, not by light. Hashem tells Lavan before he runs to catch up to Yaakov. Says don't speak to him from good or to bad. It means don't bless him, don't curse him. Bishlei Mara. We understand why bad he shouldn't say shaper. Why can't he bless him? That anything that he says that's good is actually bad. The tzaddikim don't want even the good from the wicked. Gufa, we learned before Rav Yudah Marav. Rav Yudah says in the name of Rav Leilam Yaskadam Mitzvah Shalishman Shmitar Balishman. Person should always do Torah and mitzvah even for the wrong intention, because the wrong intention will bring him to the right intention. Balak, no one had the worst intentions in Balak. He wanted to curse the Jewish people. And in order to get those curses out, he brought 42 sacrifices, 14 times 3. So, and in that merit, he has Rus, that's a descendant. She's a granddaughter of Eglain. Eglain was the one that was killed by Ehud, who was the lefty. Remember?
It was a son of Balak.
Of Balak and of Eglain. Remember, Eglain was the in the beginning of Shoftim. They were having problems with Moav, and Ehud, who was then the Shofet, says he was a lefty, so they didn't check his right side. They only checked the left side for his sword. So he says, "I have a word to speak with the king." So he goes in over there and he says, whatever. Eglain stands up. He mentions Hashem's name. Then he stabbed him. And when he leaves, he says, "Don't disturb him. He's using the bathroom." And then he runs away. He crosses the river. And by the time they realize that something happened over there, he was already gone. So okay, but the idea over here is that the fact is Balak did karbanos, and because of that, in that merit, he has Rus as a descendant. Am Rab Chia bar Abba, Am Rab Yechon, Rab Chia bar Abba. So the name of Rab Yechon, Menayin Sheina Kadosh Baruch Hu Mekapech Pilaschar Sichana. Even a nice word, Hashem doesn't forget that. Dila Bechira, when the older daughter, the Kriya Samaya Vamalei Rachman Al Tatzer Samaya Val Tiskabam Malchama, it says, don't start up with Mayav. Don't make battle with them. But you're allowed to torment them, right? But the younger daughter, the Kriyasa ben Ami, the Torah protects Amin more than Mayav. Amin, the younger daughter, when she has a child, she says that Ben Ami, it's a son of my nation. She doesn't say a son of my father. She's much more discreet. And the older daughter was not discreet. She said, "This is a child of my father." Yeah, but we're not saying that. We're saying that regarding the idea that we said that was all for the right intention. But the language that they use, now we're talking about the language, that they get rewarded for the language. Person should always hurry to do a mitzvah. Because of that one night, 24 hours, that the older daughter preceded the younger daughter. She merited to have a king in Israel 4 generations earlier, which was Rus, which was 4 generations before Shlomo, because Shlomo's mother came from Amma and just came from Mayav. Those daughters. Plus this preceded Naama, which is Shlomo's mother, by 4 generations. Okay, let's leave it over here. Have a good day, everyone.